Well, China is no different from any other country in the world. It suffered a big setback in the economy because it gave priority to defeating the virus and containing the virus, although China's losses have been smaller than many, many other countries, including mine. The situation is still not contained totally, is it? Because we don't have vaccines and we don't fully understand the virus. So any plans for the future have to take into account the possibility that something new will emerge. Right now, China looks in a pretty strong position for economic recovery, but it would be a mistake to try and do it too fast.
We know that the government has laid out its strategy in its last two sessions. The government has come up with what it's called its so-called new infrastructure strategy, hoping to shore up the economy. Now, help us understand how that differs from the traditional sort of infrastructure and what the potential of this might be.
I think it's taking time for people to understand it and absorb it. This is probably comes from deep in the policy making of the party. I would personally suggest that with my conversations with the party going back to 1997, that this is actually a major step forward in opening up the economy. It is a recognition that the socialist market economy requires the state, the party, to be in control of its direction so that it can get to the place it wants to get to, in China's case, by 2049. In order to do that, it has to also free the individuals and the companies to engage in business and innovation that relies on their own initiative. And I think this new infrastructure is probably taken from what's been tested out in BRI, where China has organized something which is probably around $3 to $4 trillion of investment, but China has only put in 10 to 12% of that themselves. So if we look at what new infrastructure is suggested to be about, AI, big data, and these emerging new areas of the economy, they are, in my opinion, less about infrastructure and more about how to deliver the future. And I think what we're seeing is the first steps of a transformation of the Chinese economy in the run-up to 2049. I think this is not so much a shoring up as a real breakthrough. And President Trump may find that the Chinese economy is more open than his economy soon.
And we've certainly seen that global investors are taking interest in this new infrastructure idea. What sort of investments do you think we can expect?
What sort of investors? I think that, if you go back to the 1990s when we had a difficult situation as well, the West didn't take up the opportunities, except my clients, for going into joint ventures in China and stood rather off from it. It was the Japanese, the South Koreans, and the Taiwanese who moved in and took advantage of the opportunities. So here again, we have a situation where those that understand it, those that can play to it, will move. But with this resistance from the United States right now, which is politically driven, it may be a while before they relax their approach and recognize that China is what they hoped it would be. And if you take the situation with regard to Europe, it is in a state of indecision about how to whether support the United States or deliver the more close economic relationship with China, which it will want in order to engage in a recovery from the virus. So I think that there'll be a lot of Asian interest, there'll be a lot of BRI interest, but there will be increasingly a European, and then there'll be the big one, the United States.
And as you know, of course, this year China not giving its target this year for GDP, but rather focusing on other aspects of the economy, including unemployment and inflation and other gauges of the economy. What should we be paying attention to when we look at the health of China's economy going forward?
In 2008, China moved faster, 2009, faster than other countries to bring in a big stimulus program to offset the impact of reduced exports because the international market was in really very bad state for quite a while. So what happened was China released a big stimulus which all other countries talked about but couldn't do. China did it, but China had consequences from that it didn't find very tasteful. And China has been learning from the effects of that stimulus program ever since. And it's worked out. You don't do one big bang. You don't do one big stimulus program. You pick the areas you've got to support and work out. Unemployment is one. Social stability is another. You can turn off the market economy in 5 minutes. You just pull the switch. It takes a lot longer to bring it back on. And China is saying there's a lot here we don't know about. We don't know what's going to happen in the world outside. We're not too certain about what's going to happen here. So we will gently and in a measured way stimulate the economy. And as it begins to work, we'll put in more and more resources to it. But we're not going to be foolish and try and press a big button again, because we won't be able to deal with the bubbles that will result from that. So I think it's a very sound, measured leadership taking a good decision here.